Better phone than it's subscribe this.
Oh, thank you. So you can see my screen, right? Yeah. Right. So we were discussing data types, and the different data types that we have seen are this. So now let us see in detail about these data types in Java.
Telegram. 6 meters a piece.
So now data types, what are the data types that we have? Like short we have, int we have, long we have, float we have, double, and boolean we have, char we have. Along with this, what else we have? We have one more data type called byte. One more data type called byte, a very smallest size, smallest in size. Yeah, byte. So now let us put them into a tabular format, like data type, size, and default values that are going to be stored in that particular data type. So when we are not assigning any value, what would be the data type? That also we see. Size and default value that that's gonna be stored under this particular data type. So under byte, what is byte? Actually, byte default size means size means the size memory allocation size for this data type. If we say byte variable or byte in our application, then how much memory will be allocated to store some value? See, whenever we wanted to store any value, we need to create the variable, right? Variable is what? It is nothing but a memory location which is used to store some changing value, frequently changing value during our program execution. So if you want to store any value in your machine, what you require? You require some memory location, right? So how much memory that we require? That is that is defined, that is predefined in a language itself. So when we say byte, it will allocate one byte, one byte, and the default value that is going to be stored under byte is what? Like 0. And when we say short, short data type occupies 2 bytes memory, or 2 bytes of memory will be allocated for short data type when we write in our programs. And the default value that will be presented in short is 0. And then next data type is int. Uh, int size is 4 bytes. 4 bytes. And the default value in int also is 0. Next, long size is long data type occupies 8 bytes, and the value that will be presented in long is 0L. It is the point we need to remember always is when we are mentioning any long variable value, the value should be suffixed with L, either uh, capital L or lowercase l, either uppercase or lowercase, anything you can write, but which is recommended, use uppercase L. Why? Because if we write like this 0L, can we say it as L or 01? What it is? Like the spelling would be, means the characters how that are being printed on the screen would confuse the uh, programmers who are reading your code, right? So it is always good practice to use capital L. You can remember like 0L. L should be capital. Of course, you can write a lowercase also, not a problem, but that's not recommended. To make your code to be cleaner and understandable for everyone, so write like this 0L or 86L. Well, long means the default. If you don't store any value, 0 would be there. But if you want to store your own value, then you can store like 86, 93 or 1 million, anything you can write, right? So next data type is float. Float size is 4 bytes, and default value in float is 0.0, and this value we have to suffix with F or capital F. Anything you can write. But in this case, even if you write a lowercase f, we can easily understand, okay, it is F. There won't be any confusion. But when we are writing L, there is a confusion between lowercase L and 1. That's why it's recommended to write as uppercase L. But in case of float, you can write anything like this. Next, in double, the double occupies 8 bytes, or size of double data type is what? 8 bytes. Of course, think these about data type sizes, no one will ask you in the interviews, but it is good to have knowledge or idea on this. Might be if you are facing any uh, online test for freshers, there would be questions related to these data types. So double also occupies a double occupies 8 bytes, and its default value is 0.0. So even if you don't write any suffix, it's okay. But if you want to write, you can write 0.0 D or capital D. Anything you can write. Anything you can write, but the lowercase also fine. Next, char data type takes 2 bytes in Java. Char data type takes 2 bytes in Java, and the default value that will be stored under char is like /u0000. The hexadecimal format of characters, it is nothing. Okay, and Boolean. Under Boolean variable, what is the size? Size is Boolean is very shortest data type in size, only 1 bit, not even byte. 8 bits are 1 byte, right? So now, in 1 bit, what we can store either 1 or 0, but when we are saying it as a Boolean, it always intended to store which one? To store the truth values, right? Yeah, true or false. Truth values, nothing but true or false. By default, this Boolean variable holds false. Holds false. These default values would be there. Why this mechanism has given? Why the data types have been defined in such a way that the variables declared for these data types will hold some default values or required default values, because in earlier languages like C or C++, what is happening? They are storing some garbage values without initializing. If you try to access that variable and write your code, it gives you some garbage values, means unexpected values. So it will give as the mm, it will give as the result for your calculations, so which will lead to some confusions and your application would break. So to avoid such confusions or unwanted values, garbage values to be used for calculations, Java has made strictly to be initializing these data type variables with some default values, instead of making use of some unexpected garbage values. Clear? Why they are giving default values for data types variables? Yeah, Sai, Shishir, Raghu, clear why it is going for default values? Yeah. Now, hmm, now, so, uh, so now let us see how do we make use of these data types. Data types are used to create program variables to store program data. Right. So now, example, how we can use here. Example, we can use byte b equals to 1 byte, means 8 bits will be there. Within 8 bits range, we can store any value, like let us say 23. We can store like this. We can store, and if I want to create a short variable, how can I create short s equals to 10,000, like this. Short is 2 bytes, right? Within 2 bytes means 16 bits range. I can store anywhere like this. Next, uh, int. Under int, I can store. Int is 4 bytes, means 32 bits range. Within 32 bits, I can store any a long value, even like int I equals to 1 million also I can store. Now, if it is long L, I can store even 10 millions. Any value. But when we are storing a long value, how should we represent as suffixing with L? By suffixing with L, we have to place a capital L at the end of the value so that it will be treated as a long value and it will be stored into this long variable. Of course, even you can use a lowercase l, it's okay. But writing uppercase L is the better thing. Uppercase L is recommended. Next, I want to store any scientific value or student score like percentage. Then I need to use the decimal point values. So how can I store? Like float f, or I can say float uh, rating equals to rating is 3.5, like this. But what is recommended? Right? Yeah. Here also instead of int I can take like int number or age. Age is student age is 50. I can write like this. Or long L means uh, number of votes. Or we can say number of votes. I have uh, 1 lakh or 10 lakh votes I have. Like that, I can say anything. So when we are writing the variable names, try to give meaningful names rather than giving like a B, S, I, L kind of things. Try to give complete names. So this is recommended always. Like why? Because we should know what is the purpose of this variable, whose value we are storing in this variable. We should know, like rating, product rating, or movie rating. Yes, in the similar way, if we wanted to store any scientific value which is having a large uh, decimal point, so then we can write double pi value. So what is pi value? Three dot 13 13 or something, anything kind of thing, right? So like this. So for double values, just a minute, yes. Yeah, hello. Raghu. Disconnect. Yeah. Okay. Double pi value like this we can write. And for character, if I want to store like a gender value, then what I can do, char gender. Like, whenever we are writing character values, we should write the character single character values in single quotes, enclosed within single quotes. Always we should write like this. And every statement in Java should terminate with semicolon. At the end, we have to place semicolon. So until it encounters semicolon, it will treat it as one single statement. So that might be presented in multiple lines, but it will take as a single statement, a single line of code. So we should ensure to terminate the statement with semicolon, just like full stop in our regular languages. That is semicolon in our programming languages, or especially in our Java language. Is it clear, guys? Why we need semicolon? And next, what else we can say? Boolean is Yeah, work. I'll do. Is eligible. Boolean, when do we use to store the truth values, so like a true or false values? So is eligible or is passed, is failed, kind of things. Uh, Values we can store with the boolean, and always it's recommended to make habit of using names, complete names for your variables. So don't take like B, S, or N, M, X, Y, Z like that. We are not doing mathematics. No, we are doing the programming. So this program should be read by again others in future or by yourself. So you by looking at the name, it should be easy to understand for everyone what you meant here. Okay, uh, is eligible. By default, it is false. I want to make it as true. Like this, we can store it. So truth values directly we can write it true, full spelling. The full spelling we should write true, and it will take and it will store here. And if it is single character, we should enclose within single quotes. If it is a double value, for a long precision values to be stored, we can use a double, and we don't require to put any suffix. But if you want to keep, you can keep like a D, lowercase or uppercase. And for floating values, float values means small decimal point values. So you can use float, and you can use, you have to suffix F, otherwise it will give you compilation error. In the same way, for long values, we have to keep L as the at the end of the value as suffix, and int short byte like this we can write. Now, so okay, this how do we create variables and how do we uh, give values to that variables? Is it clear? I guess. Right now, what Gopal is asking is, semicolon, about semicolon, right? So semicolon is a mandatory, and it is a kind of syntax rule which we should use to terminate one program statement, to specify end of one program instruction or program statement. In our statement or instruction, both are same, right? We can, in general terms, we can call it a statement, but in a technical perspective, we call it as instruction that we are giving to computer to execute it, right? So now, until this, see, if I write true, and okay, in this case it will go error, but here if I say I have an object person dot set get age dot is eligible dot, like this if I write, even though it is going for multiple lines, but until you write semicolon, it will not consider the single instruction is ending here or single statement is ending here. End of the statement in Java for any program statement or program instruction is a semicolon. You can keep like this also. Okay? It is general use that we are keeping like this. If you keep semicolon here itself, your instruction ends here itself. Or if you don't keep here, it will span until this point. Or here also, if you don't keep, it will span until here. But here, if we look at this, it comes like three lines in code. In source code, it looks like three lines, but while it has been compiled and interpreting to the uh, underlines machine or platform, it will be taken as a single statement. It will be taken as single statement. Okay, is it clear? ಯಾರದು? Yeah. Okay. So now what we do? Let us write a simple program to demonstrate how do we use data types and variables in our uh, applications or in our programs. So my first program. Now let us write a simple program. Like, how do we write a Java program? How should we write? Every program we should write inside a class only. Why? Because Java is complete fully object-oriented programming language. So everything we should write inside a class only. Without class, we cannot write any uh, small program also in Java. So you write class variables then, or data types and variables then. Variables there. Don't hesitate to give full, completely descriptive name. No need to go for shortcut names. And of course, it is not recommended to write short names. So always give fully descriptive names when you are giving names for your classes and your variables or your methods. Methods are nothing but functions. So always try to make it habit to give complete name. Don't give like a DTV demo or demo one, demo two kind of names. Don't use. Give always relevant and fully descriptive names you should give. That is one of the very much needed quality for a good programmer. Okay. Now inside the class, what we should write? What should we write, guys? Inside class? Very good. Public static void main. Yeah. String args. String array. And this notation దీన్ని ఇది ఏంటి మెయిన్ ఫంక్షన్ main function. In general, C or C++ terminology, we call it as main function. But in Java, we should call this as method, not function. So in procedural languages, we call that structural or procedural languages. We have functions. The same constructs in object-oriented programming languages, we call them as methods. So you try to call it as method only, main method. But some people might be referring it as function, main function, but both are same. Main function and main method both are same. But what is correct uh, reference is method. Okay, so main method. So this is class. Data types and variables demo is class, and this is method. Now in this, yeah, main method, and in this means it is method. The method name is main. Yeah, so we call it as main method. Now here what we can write, like int x equals to 69. But instead of writing like int x, what is recommended? Give the meaningful name. Give the meaningful name, like int marks, student marks, right? Like float percentage. Float percentage, let us say 84.76. And whenever it is percentage, anyhow we can't write a percentage symbol because we are not writing plain English or plain mathematics on paper. We are writing programming instruction, Java language programming instruction. So we can't use that special symbols over there. Like this we need to write. But how should we write? It is a float variable value, right? When we are writing float variable values, values that we are writing here, we can say these are as constants or literals. Hmm? These are literal values, right? So when we are writing the literal values, how should we write? A float literal should be suffixed or added with, appended with f, or suffixed with f. Okay. Next, boolean is pass. Whether well, it is a practice, a good practice, that boolean value, values, boolean variable names to be prefixed with is keyword, miss is prefix, miss, like boolean miss is true, is false, like that only we refer them, right? We speak how like Ramu is passed examination, or Ramu is fail, like that we say, right? Is pass, that is something like query, right? That's why we should write like is true. You can give simply pass also, not a problem, or P also you can give, or anything. Pass also you can give, but the recommended approach is pass. Like this we write it. In the same way, grade, char student grade equals to A grade, like this we can write. So now, if I wanted to print anything, what I should use to print anything? I should use the command. See, Java is a strictly case sensitive language. So however I am writing, exactly you should write. Wherever I am using lowercase letters, you should use lowercase letters. Wherever I am writing uppercase letters, you should write uppercase letters. Okay. Hmm? So this is string, capital letter should start, a string should start with always capital letter S. Hmm. And here system.out.println, here also S should be capital. Hmm. Yeah, system.out.println. What I want to print? Marks. Hmm. And let us print everything. Marks, then percentage is cross grade, like this we can write, and save the program. So while saving the program, it is good practice to save the program with same name what we have given for our class. Okay, you can give any name, not a problem, but the recommendation is to use class name and keep save as type as .java or all files, and make sure that extension should be Java always. Make sure that extension should be Java always. Yeah, Raghu, getting? Yeah, Raghu. Ah, that also we'll discuss. See here, if I give L, what happens? That I will show you. Hmm. Oh, okay, okay. That also I'll show. Hmm. If we don't write F, what happens? That I'll show. So if you use Notepad, you can see some support from Notepad, like uh, it turns up all the keywords into blue colors and literal values into like orange colors, like this, so that you can understand your syntax is correct or not. But what I prefer is even instead of Notepad plus plus, go with Notepad. Oh, why you are practicing now, right? When we are practicing, we should practice it with very basic, so that we'll get a good hold on the subject. Okay, all syntax and all, so that when you are writing programs during your labs, you can type the program quickly, and even in interviews also, they may ask you to write some program. That might be even fresher interview or experienced interview. We should write the programs on paper or on system. So having good hold on syntax and all constructs would be helpful instead of depending on IDEs. So what is IDE? I will show you in advanced. I will introduce the IDEs in advanced topics only. So all our complete core Java will go in this notepad and command prompt only. Okay, guys, you have to bear it and you have to practice it. Then only you will get means you will be a pro in program. So now what we should do? We need to compile the code, right? So how to compile? Okay, let's repeat the same steps so that you will remember. So what should I do to compile program? From where should we compile? Open the command prompt, and directly in the command prompt, if I say Java C, it will say I don't know what is Java C. Java C is not recognized. Very good. Now what we should do? We need to set path. Path to whom? To the JDK. JDK, where the Java C and Java files are presented. Means to our Java bin JDK bin folder, we have to set the path. Later, we need to switch to our folder. So, where our JDK would present usually in C drive, program files, Java, JDK, and bin. So simply type first letter and press tab. It will get the name of that folder. Okay, I'm not typing complete spelling if you observe. And semicolon dot semicolon. Okay, enter. Now, where should we need to go? We need to navigate to our working folder. Where is our working folder presented? Under E drive, online training, OFS CoreJava. JB, this one, right? Yeah. CoreJava, JB. Why it is giving error? Because we need to say CD, right? Change directory. CD. Training. This Java, JB. And this we need to. Now, our command. What is our command? Now tell me. What should we use? Which command? We need to type here. Java C data data types and variables demo dot Java. Like that, completely you try to speak so that you can memorize and you will be having a good mastery on the practices whatever we are doing. So once successful compilation, what do we get? We get dot class file, right? Demo data types and variables demo dot class. Now what we should do? We need to run. What we need to do now? Just first, basically, we need to run the program. So to run the program, now what is the command? Now tell. Java hmm, data types hmm, data types and variable demo. Run over. So what happens? You can see what did it say? Could not find or load main class dot Java. Why? Because it requires JVM needs what? That's why the theory part also very important. When we are learning basics, don't think that doing more and more programs give you a good hold on the subject. Theory also very important. Why? Because see, if you would have remember the theory and understood the theory clearly and remember, you may not get this doubt. But of course, ask whatever doubt you get, you ask here. Why? Because our objective is that only now. Whatever silly doubt or genius doubt, we have to clarify. But thing is, why I'm saying this, I want to emphasize the importance of theory. Why people are writing that theory or that books, right? Because what they said, JVM to run your program, what is required in your machine? JVM is required, right? So to for JVM, what should be the input? What JVM can understand and what JVM can execute? Can it execute your Java source code or Java bytecode? Java bytecode only, right? So where do you have Java bytecode in this? On dot class file, right? Dot class file, right? So this only we should give. If I give dot Java, what that means? It is nothing but Java source code, right? Java source code. So Java source code, can it understand and can it execute that instructions? No, right? That is the point. So that is the importance of theory. That's it's a basic point or a situation where you can understand the importance of theory. Okay, don't ignore theoretical points also. Whatever I'm telling you are asking you to remember, that try to remember those points, which will help you and which will make you faster in coding. Okay. Now, of course, even our bytecode is presented in demo.class file. So, shall we give dot class? Of course, dot class also it does not accept. JVM requires only the class name what you have given in your program. JVM always expects the class name what you have given in your program. Sometimes the file name would be different and the class name would be different in your colleges. You might be doing like this would be like this and file name would be like program one, program two or something. Even in that case also, anytime always you should give what's the name you have given for your class. The same name you should use as the input to this Java. Okay. So now, why it is, what it will do, that all also I will explain after some time. Why? Because in the very beginning itself, if I explain, it may confuse you. So once you understood some OOPS concepts, means after completing all these basic concepts, I will explain this again. There is some story behind this main and class, why we need to give only class name without any extension. All that I will explain. Okay. It prints all the values like this. Is it clear? In this way, we need to define variables and get the values. Clear? Now, yeah, Raju Shishir, it's clear, right? Yeah. Now, what I'm going to do for float percentage, just simply I have given this value 84.76. So now if I try to compile it, what happens? What it is say? Error. Java compiler will give you very good assistance when you are doing any mistake. It clearly shows where and what exactly the mistake is. So try to read the error messages. Don't skip the error messages. Even 100 errors might be there in your program. That's not a problem. Don't worry. Just try to read the first error message in your program. Always remember that. Always try to read the first error message in your program and try to solve it. And of course, if you read that error message given by your Java compiler, it is very clear and almost maximum. It will be very clear and descriptive. You can understand easily, and you can do what is required to be done. You can what went wrong and what is wrong, you can easily understand. See, it is saying that on the data types and variables demo, variable demo.java, this is our file name where our source code is presented. .java means our source code, right? Huh? Colon 4 means what? Line number 4. Line number 4. On line number 4, what it is saying? Error is there. On line number 4, error is there. What is that error? Incompatible types, possible lossy conversion from double to float. That means what? By default it takes it as double. That's what I said. If it is a double value, d you can write or you can ignore. By default it will take as floating point values or decimal point values. It will take as double. But if you want to declare this as a float, you should declare it as means you should suffix it f at the end. You should suffix f at the end. F can be smaller or uppercase f, small letter or lowercase or uppercase or small letter or capital letter. Anything you can write. Is it clear, guys? What happens in filter point? In the similar way, with the long also the same scenario. Okay. Clear? Yeah, Raghu. Sai. Yeah, Shishir. Got? Yeah, fine. Okay. Okay, guys. So let's stop here, and tomorrow we'll continue further discussion on another topics in our basic language constructs. So what are our things? What do we have next? Like keywords, operators, control statements, and others. Will continue tomorrow with the keywords. Okay. Okay, guys. Bye. 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 You're welcome. One this way. Take.